Hey BookTube, Sean here with Eclectic Reads, and today I want to talk about my TBR for the Reddit Fantasy Bingo. This is a challenge that the subreddit Fantasy does every year from April to March, and this year I thought it would be cool to participate since I read a lot of fantasy and I had a lot of what my TBR is made up of lately, especially since starting to watch BookTube. So I'm not going to go into a lot of description on the books because most of them will end up in wrap-ups or I'll do reviews of them, and this video would end up 20-25 minutes long if I did that or more. So I'm just going to go through the categories and the books I've chosen or maybe not have chosen for each category. So here we go. The first category is any R Fantasy Goodreads Group Book of the Month. And honestly, I don't have a book nailed down for this yet. There is a lot of books in that Goodreads group that are on my TBR, and it'll basically be whichever one of them I get to first. So the next category is format, graphic novel, at least one volume. And I've actually already completed this category, and for that I read East of West volume. I read volume 2. This is I have the physical copy of volume 1, so that's what I'm showing. But I read volume 2 for it. Next is novel featuring time travel. For this one, I am reading Just One Damn Thing After Another by JODI Taylor, part of the Chronicles, I think it's called the Chronicles of St. Mary. It's book 1 of that. The next category, fantasy novel published in 2017. For that, I am reading Michelle Baker's Phantom Pains, which is the second book of the Arcadia Project. I read the first book of the Arcadia Project earlier this year and really enjoyed it, and immediately pre-ordered book 2 and was so excited to read it that I haven't gotten to it yet. But that's what I'll be reading for that. The next category is an author's debut fantasy novel, and I've actually completed that category too. This is all in row 1 of the bingo card too, and I'll try and link the Reddit post with the rules and everything down below. Something I forgot to mention is you cannot repeat authors or use books for multiple categories with this challenge. Everything must be a separate book and separate author. There's only one category that you can repeat an author, and I'll get to that. So this is the last book in row 1 of the bingo card, an author's debut fantasy novel, and for that I read Traitor's Blade by Sebastian de Castell. On to row 2. The first category in row 2 is nonfiction fantasy-related book. And for that, I am going to read Dragonholder, The Life and Dreams of Anne McCaffrey by Todd McCaffrey, a little biography on Anne McCaffrey by her son. The next category is fantasy novel that's been on your TBR for over a year. And for this, I'm going to read The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I'm a little hesitant to read this. I know a lot of people on BookTube love it, and I'm sure I would love it too, and I want to go on to the next book. My hesitancy is that of a lot of people, I think, that haven't started this series, is we don't know when he's releasing the third book still. And if I love the first 2 books, I'm going to be irritated that we don't know when the third book is coming out. But I guess I'll be joining a lot of people in that frustration. The next category of row 2 is an award-winning fantasy novel, and for that I've already completed that one, and I read The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin, which won the Hugo Award last year. Next category in row 2 is subgenre, dystopian, post-apocalyptic, or dying Earth. For that, I'm actually currently reading. I've been had it in process for a little while. That's good English, Sean. But anyway, The Handmaid's Tale, Margaret Atwood is what I'm reading for that. unless I finish another dystopian novel before I get that one finished. The final category in row 2 is Our Fantasy Big List 2016 Underread and Underrated. This is a category that the Reddit Fantasy has on their. It's a thread that they have of what people consider underread or underrated fantasy novels. And for that, I am going to read Mage's Blood by David Hare. That's listed in that subreddit. Row 3. The first category in row 3 is a horror novel. I read a lot of horror novels, so I've actually already completed this one. Excuse me. For that, I read The Bird Eater by Anya Allborn, and I'll actually probably be doing a review video of that book. Next category, fantasy novel featuring a desert setting. For that, I'm going to read The 12 Kings of Sherakai by Bradley R. Bolio. Is that how you pronounce his last name? Next category for that, reuse any R Fantasy bingo square. So for that, I'm going to the 2016 bingo card and using the science fiction, read a science fiction book. So for that, right now I have 9 Fox Gambit marked down for that, but if I finish another science fiction book before I actually get to this, then that's what it'll be. The next category in row 3 is self-published fantasy novel. And the rules are a little... If you read the rules on this, at the time of this bingo, if it was self-published but has since been picked up by a major publisher, then it doesn't count. So for this, I am reading, and as of right now, unless I am mistaken, but the last I looked, the book Priest by Matthew Colville, the book one of the Rat Catchers, is still self-published and hasn't been picked up by a major publisher. So that is, my plan is to read that, but I also have a couple others on my Kindle that will fit that category, and if I read one of those first, then that's what it'll be. Final category in row 3 is fantasy novel featuring non-human protagonist. For that, I am reading Dragon Champion by E. E. Knight. The protagonist in this book is a dragon. Row 4. The first category in row 4 is read a sequel, not the first book in a series. For that, currently I have marked down Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb, because I want to get through the Robin Hobb series. I read the first book, Assassin's Apprentice, a couple years ago, and I finally want to really get to that. Second category in row 4 is novel by an R Fantasy AMA author or writer of the day. So that's their Ask Me Anything author or writer of the day, and they have a whole list and schedule of their AMAs. So for that, I'm going to read Sailing to Sarantium by Guy Gavriel Kay, because I've really been wanting to check out some Guy Gavriel Kay, and this is a great opportunity to do so. Next category in row 4 is subgenre Fantasy of Manners. For that, I'm going to read Shades of Milk and Honey by Mary Robinette Kowal. Next category is fantasy novel featuring dragons. I'm thinking I'm going to read The Summer Dragon by Todd Lockwood for that, or A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan, whichever one I get to first. But right now I'm thinking this one. Next category is subgenre New Weird. Now this one, I hadn't heard of New Weird as a subgenre, so I had to look into this. And I guess China Miéville is really a big author in this new weird subgenre category. So I've read a China Mayville earlier this year, this Census Taker, and I enjoyed I enjoyed his writing style more than I enjoyed the book. I did enjoy the book, but I enjoyed his writing more than I enjoyed the book. So I really immediately put all of his other books on my TBR on Goodreads. So for that, I am going to read Perdido Street Station. Going on to row 5, final row. The first category is fantasy novel featuring seafaring. For that, I am going to read Child of a Hidden Sea by A.M. Delamonica. Subgenre, steampunk. I have 2 options for that, and maybe you guys can help me out with that. Which one you think I should read? In Bookcase Club, actually got both these books in Bookcase Club. One of them I already had on Kindle and still hadn't read yet, so I was happy to have a physical copy of it. But my first option is Karen Memory by Elizabeth Bear, and my second option is The Aeronaut's Windlass by Jim Butcher, and I really love his Harry Dresden series, so I'm kind of leaning towards this one right now. But let me know what you think I should do for that one. The next category in row 5 is the one that you can use the same author more than once, and it's 5 fantasy short stories. So you can use a author's collection of short stories for this, and have 5 short stories by the same author. This is the only time you can repeat an author. And for that, I am reading, actually just started it a couple days ago, The Last Wish, introducing The Witcher, and I'm going to butcher this name. I'm actually going to butcher names a lot on this channel, I'm sure. But Andrzej Sapkowski, but it is the first of 2 books of short stories that precede the 5-book Witcher series. And I've already read the first few stories, and I'm absolutely loving it. I'm hooked on it. The next category is novel by an author from an R Fantasy author appreciation post. Stood out to me was C.J. Sherry, and at first I had her Foreigner on here, and because I've been wanting to check out her Foreigner series for a long time. So I thought it was a great opportunity to do that, but I kind of wanted to keep it in the fantasy realm, and I know C.J. Sherry's also written some fantasy books, so I am going to read, this is a bind-up of her 2 books in the Dreaming Tree duology. So the first book is called The Dreamstone, so that is what I'm going to mark for novel from an author by an our fantasy author appreciation post. And then the final category on the fantasy bingo is Getting Too Old for This Crap. Fantasy novel with an older 50-plus protagonist. And those of you who read fantasy know a lot of epic fantasy is usually a young boy who finds out his destiny is to complete this epic quest and be the savior of the realm. So finding a fantasy book with an older protagonist can be difficult, and there are threads to help find books in all these categories. So that's what I had to do. I had to look at one of the subreddits and try and figure it out, and a lot of people brought up Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames, and it sounded really cool about a ragtag group of kind of has-been heroes that are called upon to save the day once again. So that's what I'm going to read for older protagonists. And that's it. That's the entire bingo card and what I read and what some of my options are. If you've read any of these books, let me know in the comments. Also, if you have better suggestions, now I'm not going to say better suggestions because that's relative. But if you've got other suggestions of books that would fit the categories that I could consider, please let me know in the comments. If you like this video, Give it a like, hit subscribe, hit me up in the comments. If you've already subscribed, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the support, and I'll see you all in my next video.